This thing working. What is happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic Saturday. If you're watching this, chances are your Saturday did not go as well as you had hoped. So how's the DA where you are these days? I'll tell you what, down here in southeast Texas, density altitude has been horrific. Anyway, conditions if nothing else. Maybe not DA, but the conditions haven't necessarily been awesome. So last night, just kind of yammering on here, but took the car to the drag strip and, well, the humidity was 91%. At least it was towards the end of the night. We got started early on. Eric Taylor's in. What's up, man? First in, I like it. So got rolling and, you know, it's just one of those nights where you want each run to mean something. And I'm data logging, I'm collecting data. By the way, the data was awesome on the car. Still trying to work through a little bit of a weird transmission thing. I don't really think it's anything. But in fact, it's something that I probably have noticed before, but with the air quality being as terrible as it's been lately, you know, goofy things can just kind of happen. So anyway, tail of the tape, the car went 1040s, 132 miles an hour. Density altitude was around 13 and 1400 feet, but the humidity, which kills these things, yeah, anywhere between 85, 88, and 91%. Yay! So anyway, but the car did well, 1040s all night. The Hoosiers dead hooked no matter what the track prep was. Can't say enough good things about that tire, by the way. So, you know, what else can I say? You know, it's just a trip to the drag strip. Like I say, the data looked fantastic. Injector duty cycle with the latest fueling was hovering somewhere right around 90%. It had started to kind of trail up a little bit to about 91, 92%. So still perfectly within the range of what the DA conditions are going to be for this car. So, but what I wanted to talk about, you know, are some of the things that affect the supercharged cars, higher performance cars, a little bit more than, you know, the more mundane performance engine, you know, lower compression and all that. It's just that humidity is the big one. So, yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and we're going, man, I'll take 2,000 feet altitude with 40% humidity all day long, even considering the 13 or 1400 the car was being run in. I've run quicker in higher DAs, or at least as quick in higher DAs with the car, just because the humidity was lower. So, you know, a lot of times people start talking about density altitudes and things like that. A lot of that calculation is going to come in humidity, you know, or water grains is what some other folks will look at it as. So, let's see. Let's check in with everybody. Jerry saying, what up, B? Riff's in saying, hey, B, what's up, man? Broklahoma's in. Brian Davis, I like it. DSRT saying, what's up, B? Got the arm flex coat. SRT8 saying, hey, man, my 6'1" is knocking. What could it be? It's probably a rod knock. And that sucks. Jean-Paul's checking in saying, hi, Brian, how much power would a 5.7 stroked out to a 392 forged with a Maggie, 10 to 13 pounds of boost with a 6-speed? If you're asking how much power that would make, 10 pounds of boost, you're looking at somewhere around 535, 540 horsepower to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno, give or take. It'll be a good running car. It'll be a fun car to drive too. Rich saying, I got 1050 X injectors, 309 diff, dual HHP pump for 85 on my Hellcat. Am I gonna need a roll cage? It depends on. I'll put it to you like this. Right now, you're looking at, with a tune and everything else on E85, if your tuner gets real aggressive, throws the kitchen sink at it, and you've got quality, and I mean quality E85, man, you might be looking at a like a 1030, 1020. It's going to depend on your DA. Some tracks are pretty laid back about this. They're not going to say, you got to have a cage and you got to have this, that, and everything else. Others do. So just be mindful of the track that you're at. NHRA rules would say that you have to, but realistically, not really. And keep this in mind. I mean, NHRA tracks want you racing on their drag strips. And management obviously does too. They don't make any money if you're out playing around on the street and stopping in at Whataburger when you're done. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the modern cars, there's a lot of modern cars that will go into the tens from the factory. Hellcat's one of them on a tire. So you'll see tracks be a little bit more lenient when it comes to that kind of stuff. It's just kind of comes with the territory. These modern cars are a lot faster than the cars were when they were making the rules. Are also a heck of a lot safer. And the safety comes in stability, it comes in tire technology, it comes in safety stuff inside the car. The way that the cars are built, they're just structurally a lot more sound than anything, and I mean anything, that was made back when those rules were made. So I doubt you're going to catch any static. Abdul's checking in saying, love the channel, bro. Got 2 thumbs up. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's see. Brandon's saying, hey, B, I was on my way to the track last week with my drag pack on. The car started vibrating badly on the way, and then I turned around. Tire shop is saying possible that the tire is spinning on the wheel. How can I prevent that from happening? Couple of things. One, what tire are you running? If you're running a bias ply where you're going to try to air the thing down, I wouldn't run any less than about 16 or 18 pounds in a bias ply anyway on some of these cars, the modern cars, especially with the independent rear suspension. If you're running ET Street R's, you don't need to be at anything less than 22 ever for those tires, or any other drag pack for that matter, or I'm sorry, drag radial for that matter, even if it's being used on it as a drag pack. So there's that. The extra air pressure will keep the tire from rotating, or the rim from rotating within the tire. Foxy's in the way. I'd be more than happy to show you. I actually mark my tires, and there's 2 things. I'll mark it to see how much the tires are turning in the rims. The lower the pressure that I've run, the more the tire is going to turn in the rim, because there's not as much pressure holding that bead, I guess, to the or the tire to the bead of the rim. Here's the other thing. If you get your tire to the tire shop, make sure you tell them, if your wheel is spinning inside the tire, make sure you tell them, don't use any of that grease, or very sparingly. Just don't use any grease when they put it on. I've had situations come up where the wheel is spun a significant amount inside the tire, enough to where it had to be rebalanced. So check your air pressure. Make sure you didn't throw a weight. That's the other thing. Make sure they're putting the weights in the right places. If you're running the drag packs that I'm running, 17-inch in the rear, 18 in front, weights have got to be on the outside portion of those wheels, because there's a brake line that can get in the way, and there's a caliper on the front. So brake line in the rear, caliper up front can jack those weights up. But that would be some of the reasons why it would do that. But again, it's partially pressure related, partially installation related. And then there's, any interference that may have come along. SRT8 saying, oh, my bad, said he meant to say ticking, not knocking. It depends on the tick. I mean, they all have a little bit of a sewing machine sound to them. So just make sure you're not mistaking that with a tick. But if there is a true tick, look for exhaust leaks, first and foremost. Check your manifolds. Make sure the manifold bolts are torque to spec. I think, what are they, 25? Hell, I can't remember what the damn torque spec is off the top of my head right now. I just put them in wrist height and call it good. Just don't lean on them. I mean, they're going into aluminum, right? So you don't want to have, don't want to wrist them up too much. But anyway, check for, just in general, check for exhaust leaks. And aside from that, there shouldn't be any ticks going on, especially with a 6.1. Those things are pretty solid, pretty robust. More than likely, it is an exhaust leak, though. I doubt it's your lifters, man. I just saw you type that in. Yeah, I doubt it's going to be your lifters. Check the oil too. And when's the last time the thing had an oil change? That's something else to consider too. Brendan saying ET drag radials. Yeah, that's that could very well be what you're up against, bud. Bump that pressure up a little bit. DESRT, FIC 1000s or ID 1050s for race gas on a Cat. Man, either way you go, you're going to be good. I like fuel injector connection myself. They're just been proven to be really good. They're really good from out of the box. But you've got fuel injector connection, Fuel One, who's based out of Houston. Keith over there is real good with injectors. Those would be the two that I would personally go with. So, yeah, you'll be in good shape. ID 1050s are good too, man. They're all good. But yeah, fuel injector connection for the win, man. I mean, I just know guys that have used those, love them. Let's see. Oh, Ripped is talking about, he's had the same problem with those tires at a certain speed. It actually turned out to be one of the tires was not perfectly round. Yeah, there is some run out with those ET Street Rs. I've just never really run into that problem, although I have heard of them. It's like a bad run, especially if you tell you what, if you just got the set. And I mean just got it. In other words, you're one of the crew that was waiting on them, kind of like I was. I do happen to know this. They did have a bad batch of tires. They tried to rush a set, or I was at least told, that they tried to rush a set through production and there was a problem with the tires. I'm not sure what it was. Could have been that it was out of round. Could have been who knows what. I don't know. I wasn't told the exact reason. I'd be lying if I gave you any kind of a reason why they were defective, but they were defective. And that's one of the reasons why my production date got kicked downstream twice. And it actually ended up getting kicked to a spot where I wouldn't even have had an opportunity to run the tires or to run the car leading up to January. My track's going to be shut down in December, so it kind of gives you an idea for what we're up against on that deal. The tire situation just kind of sucks. What can I say? Oh, GS1 checking in and said, what's the deal with tire back orders lately? Man, we're just talking about that. Thank you very much for the contribution to the cause. So here's the thing. There was something that had happened to the ET Street R factory, the Mickey Thompson factory in Ohio, where the tires were made. I was told there was something about a fire or something like that. Maybe some equipment broke, or I don't know. I've heard a couple of different things. Anyway, that was the main reason. Then I was also told it had something to do with COVID. There was all this other just yammering in the background, but that's the only things that I have heard of with those tires. And again, you know, they tried to do a run of the tires and tried to rush them through production after everything was said and done. And when I say they were back ordered, by the way, man, they're back ordered by, they're probably over 1,000 sets in back order right now. So in fact, my order was one of 300 that was being made. So 300 sets. I don't know if they blocked them in 300. I don't know about how that works, but at least that's what I was told. Anyway, that's what's going on with those back orders. And if you need a DOT legal tire, the problem is that Mickey Thompson has had they've had a monopoly with the ET Street Rs. I mean, yeah, there's other tires that are out there, but realistically, you know, they've got the only tire that does what that tire can do, which is to take you from street to strip and back home again. So the Hoosiers that I'm running, the drag bracket radials, they're really good on the drag strip. I just would not I can't in good faith recommend the tires for any real long distance driving. Again, maybe 30 minutes at the most in any one direction, depending on temperature and all this other stuff that would come into play, because that compound's a little bit softer. So fantastic on the drag strip, good if you live within about 30 minutes of the drag strip, but Hoosier is going to be coming out with that STS, that street to strip line. Hopefully, in talking to them, that we're looking at end of Q1. So basically end of March, beginning of April of 2021. So in answer to your question, GS1, man, we'll have another tire to pull from, but it's going to be, we're going to have to wait a little bit on it. Let's see. Oh, GS1 saying, got to drive next to an orange 427 Yenko Camaro today for a little while. I like it. Cool car. They've got some really good, there's a company that was making those clones of those cars. Real pretty, real good car, man. Like those things. Kevin saying, what up, Mason? What up, Kevin? V8 saying direct injection has a typical tick because of high pressure fuel. That is correct, but the engine we're talking about is not direct injected. And it'll tick a little bit, but you got to be listening for it. Abdul saying his Mickeys do the same thing, pass about 120 miles an hour, went and had them rebalanced, and it hasn't done it since. B was right, marking it helps. Yeah. So the main thing is, yeah, you got to mark them. If you don't mark them, you won't know really when to take them in. And I would say if for whatever reason, if you're getting more than like 6 inches of movement, you're probably going to need some kind of rebalancing. Frank's asking, is it possible to make a 6.4 392 a mid to high 10-second car on 93? If so, what is needed besides tire tune and et cetera, et cetera? So what you're going to need to do is you're going to drop weight first and foremost before you do anything. Driver needs to start losing weight too. So the car and the driver both need to start cutting weight. Bumper supports are going to, you have to go with the lightweight bumper supports, a drag pack. You're going to need to run no front seat, rear seat delete. Basically everything that you can remove from the car that you can realistically remove from the car needs to come off of that car. You know, if you're looking to do it straight up NA, obviously the cam is going to help. But before you get into that, best thing to do is to get the car stripped completely and get an ET out of it. I've been able to run 11.2 at 119 miles an hour in an SRT with no front seat, no back seat on a drag pack. That alone with just a cat delete and a tune was enough to get there. Now, the tuning is a little bit better in terms of transmission tuning and some other things. The software can just capture more PIDs, so to speak. And it's even better still. So you may not need a cam to go 10s if you've lightened the car up enough to get there. I know that there's been several guys that have done it. The old record that I had set in a friend's car stood for about 1.5 or 2 years at 11.25, and really did never get an opportunity to chase that number any further. I know other folks have gone deeper and have had some more success than that, but that's where you're going to need to start. And then from there, you can go cam, you can go really maybe a fuel change, tuning it on race gas. You might be able to throw a little bit more time and get a little bit out of it, maybe eke it into the 10s a little deeper, but you're going to be kind of stuck at that 10.2, 10.1 range without really digging into the engine too much. Hellcat airbox, Hellcat air filter, you know that routine. And again, running it on 100 octane race fuel, a little bit of octane, a little bit of timing in with that octane, definitely will help you. So it can be done, and I know it has been done. It just depends on how freaky you want to get with that weight reduction. Again, GS1, thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Ruth saying, I bought everything to set my Hellcat up for a 285 upper on E85, and now I'm just worried about having to cut my interior up for a roll cage. Nah, I wouldn't worry about it. Again, man, like I say, we've got, it's not going to sound right, but I mean, we've got 9-second cars running at our track all day long. And again, nobody's going to go hacking their car up to go take it down to the drag strip. It doesn't work like that. Not the modern cars anyway. The older stuff, I can kind of see it. DSRT saying, thanks, brother, appreciate it. Got the arm flex, I like it. Frank's asking if roll cages are required anything quicker than 10. It's supposed to have a 6-point. But I mean, nobody really runs them, so there's that. Riff saying in Cali said they're pretty strict with it here. Let's see. Ever saying, do you have to buy the Scat Pack Stage 1 if you have a Challenger TA, or do you get it, or before you get the Stage 2? No, I believe Stage 2 comes with everything in Scat 1. I think it reads, Stage 2 comes with everything in Stage 1 plus. Let's see here. Frank saying, I see a bunch of guys, especially with the new GT500, running 9s, and they don't seem to have a roll cage. I asked the same, and they have not replied. I don't know if you've seen a bunch of guys running 9s with GT500s. You've seen a bunch of GTs running 9s, but probably not GT500s. Either way, I'm kind of splitting hairs there, only to stir the pot because it's kind of funny. So I'll tell you something. When we had the GT500 on the dyno, it was just funny seeing. Well, first of all, let me stop right there. I've yet to see a GT500 at the drag strip, and I am down here with arguably one of the most populated and most utilized drag strips around, and what the fuck was that? And haven't seen one yet, so that's kind of a weird thing. But anyway, all the nannies that are in that tune to protect that transmission are hysterical, by the way. Let's see. See, Chuck's asking, hope you missed your last session. My question is, what is the difference between traction control on and off on my RT shaker? Is it possible? Yep. Just hold your traction control button down for 5 seconds. You'll hear it ding, and then you have no traction control. That shuts the entire system down. Let's see. Riff saying, my friend got a 315 upper pulley on E85 and ran a 980 and then got kicked off the track here. No, it's a 315. Abdul saying with 315 with E and he ran 980. Yeah, actually, there's guys on stock boost that have run 980s. So, but that's also complete weight reduction, E85, lots of timing, and killer DA. But it has been done already. I mean, I'm trying to set the record for pump gas. And that's turning out to be kind of tough, actually. My car's already run a 1016 stock boost on pump gas, but I haven't gone crazy at all with weight reduction. Probably should, but it's a little late for that. Coming into January a little bit quick, so maybe that'll be a project for December, eh? Anyway, getting back to it. Oh, Rift is hanging out with Abdul. Yeah, it's been done quite a few times, buddy. There's been probably 3 or 4 guys that were campaigning stock boost cars to see how deep into the 9s they could get them. And I want to say, God, man, I want to say the fastest out of the group was a 985 or a 983. I'm almost positive it was a 980. I just can't remember if it was a low 980 or mid. Anyway, there was 980s, some 990s in there as well on stock boost. So yeah, that's not an undoable thing or an impossible thing to do. Abdul saying Camaro ran 10.2 on upper pulley, 285 1300s on pump 93 with an 18-inch Mickey. And Riff saying I saw him run that time and others like myself. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, we see him all the time. HU37 said I had good luck with M&H Race Masters if Mickey Thompsons are a problem. Stick with the Hoosiers, man. The Hoosiers are great because they're just dead consistent. Kobe saying, what up, B? What up, Kobe? Riff saying, oh yeah, he did have an A1 interchiller. That actually probably cost him a couple of hundreds. SRT8 saying, was going 140 last time and my car lost power, gave it gas and nothing. Could it be my throttle body? It could be. Yeah, it could very well be a throttle body signal issue. But 140, I mean, you're really not stressing that powertrain that much. I don't know why you'd have an issue with throttle body at that point, unless it's a connection. Abdul's asking what the guy was running in the trap, 141. I don't know. I've been running 135, 136 with my setup. in the kind of conditions that it took me to get that deep into the 10s. Let's see. Oh, CJ saying, I've heard Ford making the new 6.8 V8 for the Mustang and F-150. Dude, I don't know what they're making the 6.8 for. I don't know, and I'm not really sure the 6.8 is going to be an offering for the Mustang. I think that might be some fake news. And the only reason why I say that is because you're going to replace the Coyote with that. The 6.8, and this is just me spitballing because I don't have a clue, would be basically, my understanding of it would be a low deck 7.3, which would be killer in terms of being able to make power, but I don't know that they would actually really go through with that. But, you know, what do I know? We'll see, though. If they're going to put that in the F-150, that'd be badass. But I'll believe it when I see it. Let's just put it to you that way. Kevin saying, hey Mason, what is the max horsepower and torque that you would recommend for a 5.7 to still dead hook on a tire? Well, I mean, at the drag strip, you're not gonna hit that limit. So throw the kitchen sink at it. Really, you're looking more in terms of what's the most torque converter can you run. I'd say, go with like a 3,800 RPM stall converter if you're gonna have a cam in the thing. With a 370 gear, do a nice burnout, nail it, and hang on, because that thing's going to come out of the hole like a Hellcat. So, and I know that because the trucks that are running 4,000 RPM stall converters with 392 gears are running 154, 152, 156, 60 foots, which again is Hellcat territory. So, I would say that if you're on a tire and you're on a prepared surface, don't worry about it. Just put whatever you can into the car and let her eat, because she'll hook. Don't worry about that. But just remember, if you're an 8-speed car, you're only limited by the amount of torque that you're going to be making, whether you've got nitrous, roots blower, or whatever the case is. You're looking at a situation really with your limit being around 535, 550 pound-feet of torque on a Mustang dyno. That's where those HP70s start to slip a little bit. So at least at that load with that heavy of a car. CJ's talking about the 7.3 Ford crate motor being released. Yeah, I mean, I think it's already out. It's been out for a while. We're saying, so I heard if I put 315 5017 on my Hellcat that I will need to make room for them in the tire well. Is that true? Yes. You are actually, with a 315 5017, you may be doing quite a bit of fender well massaging, but it's super easy to do. So, I mean, all you need is a drill bit, and a plastic clip, the little pickle fork looking thing. And that's really all you'll need to make the changes to your inner fender well that you should be making with that tire. And really, it's just you're going to be pulling the pins out, those little plastic clips, moving the thing around where you need it, kind of run your thumb over the plastic to find the hole, mark it with a punch or, an awl or something like that, and then just drill it out, or just drill it out while it's sitting there, and then put your clip back in. There's really nothing to it. But yeah, you will probably have to move that around because that's a big ass tire. And it's not really the tread width, it's the section width of that tire, because that's a fat tire through the carcass of it. Abdul saying that makes sense. I forgot about weight reduction and the timing E has. Yeah, you can throw some timing. You can definitely throw some timing at the Hellcats with E. Quick Bricks checking in. What up, homie? Saying, what up, my friend? Got to drive a 2020 GT500 today with Paul. Can't wait to give you my thoughts here in the next day or two. Charger's still running great, by the way. T-Stat issue resolved. Thank goodness. Absolutely. Yeah, I went with that Reich thermostat in that car, and it seems to be working out really well. So, very cool. Yeah, I can't wait to hear about that, though, with the GT500. That ought to be pretty fun. Fun chat. So hit me up, man. We're saying, actually, my friend did not do any weight reduction to get that 980. Let's see. Mike G saying, hey, first time hit me over here. As far as internals go on the 5.7, basically he's asking if there's anything he should keep an eye on or think about upgrading once his warranty runs out, or should I just keep up with maintenance? Not really much to worry about. Obviously the Hemi tick thing with the manifolds could potentially pop up and annoy you, but no, there's really nothing internally on those things, the modern ones anyway. Nothing really to sweat. The earlier ones, the super early ones, had some possible issues with some valve seats. You know, that's kind of it's a very much a hit and miss issue. Then there were some of the 5.7s from 2014, 15, and 16 that had some potential issues with lifters, but I think that's since been taken care of. I can tell you that for the company that I work for, the region that I work in, we have 26 Hemi powered work trucks, and aside from the Hemi tick, there hadn't been any issues with any of those trucks. And really, there's only been a handful of those trucks that have that issue. Yes. Oh, Abdul saying that on the 31550s, yes, they will rub. GT's asking, is the 5.7 really that good with a Hellcat supercharger? I'd rather see the Maggie out of for the E-Force kit on it than the Hellcat supercharger. Rip's asking, what handles boost better, a 5.7 or a 6.1? They're both about the same. You know, again, when you're talking boost, one of the things you've got to remember is just throwing boost at a car is a real good way to blow the thing up if you're just going to try to turn the wick up as high as it'll go. The trick, if you're going to do stock, is to keep the thing around a 150 horsepower gain. As long as you're sticking within that parameter, you're going to be fine. You're not going to really be over stressing anything, provided that the tune and the fuel quality are where they need to be. It's when you start really trying to throw the wood to it that, well, things go a little bit wrong. And to be honest with you, the 6.1 and the 5.7, they're going to be about the same. I mean, 6 to 1, half a dozen to another, really, when it comes to those two engines. However, if you really want to build something for boost and you want to go seriously fast, you want to start making 650, 750, 850 to the rear wheels, the engine's going to need to come out. Ring gap's going to have to be readdressed. The stock internals will handle it. I'm not worried about that. But if the parts are coming out, then you might as well upgrade the short block while you're at it. Crank will definitely be fine, but rods and pistons will probably want to take a look at. And to be honest with you, the easy bet is to set your ring gap to 28 thousandths and call it good. Most of them shouldn't need any more than that. That's going to be for number 1 and the number 2 ring. So, you know, that's kind of the quick and painless way to put together any of these modern V8s for boost. As long as you've got ring gap set, you probably will not run into a major problem. But you got to remember that you've got fuel quality to contend with, you know, or lack thereof. And you need to build a power plant around the fuel that you're going to be using. You know, don't try to, you know, throw the freaking kitchen sink at something that's only going to see pump gas. Forged internals, by the way, will not save you from a terrible tune or bad fuel quality. They'll save you from, you know, shattering a piston or potentially bending a rod if things do go awry once for a very small amount of time. But that's about it. You can still burn a hole pretty quickly through a set of forged pistons or bend a nice set of rods. I guess where I'm going with this is you can only build the amount of power that the fuel quality will allow you to build. Build the engine with the understanding of the fuel quality that you're working with, and you'll be just fine. And that's another thing. A lot of times, a lot of the stuff you hear about, these guys are running on different fuels. They're running on controlled fuels. A lot of that stuff has gone on, and you just need to know the difference. It's in most of these cases, it's not like these guys are running down to their local, you know, Exxon station and putting 93 octane in the tank. and going out there and running some of these obnoxious times. It takes E85 or race gas, preferably E85, which requires the fuel system, the tune, and everything else to go along with it. And without that, you're simply not going to reach your goals, because each fuel has its own limitations for what it can manage based on cylinder pressure, dealing with pre-ignition when you've got cars that are as heavy as these are. That extra weight is going to add for dwell time, in this case, dwell in terms of cylinder pressure. That cylinder pressure is going to exist for a longer period of time to get one of these things out of the hole. So there's a lot that goes into putting the tune together for, again, race gas, E85, 93 octane. All of them have their own parameters. All of them have their limitations. Some are reached a lot earlier than others. You know, if you're going to be running Q16 with no cats and, you know, just throwing the kitchen sink at it, practically a fuel that I don't think you can get to detonate. You just, you know, adjust it with timing until you make peak power. That's one thing. But again, you want to talk about having a dedicated setup. You just got to know that, again, the compromises and the limitations of what you're going to be working with. Let's see. Oh, Riff's saying that 6.1 on 9 pounds did great before he built it. Yeah, I mean, dude, 6.1 on 9 pounds is a fun little engine. CJ's saying Boosted Motorsports has a blue 98 Dodge Dakota, and he's planning on swapping a Hellcat engine from a wrecked 2019 Charger Hellcat, and it's going to be a monster when it's all said and done. Well, good for him. Let's advertise some more for him on my channel, CJ. Thanks. Because he's doing some cool stuff with that truck. Kevin's saying, Mason, for the 5.7 on the street, what horsepower and torque would be the sweet spot to dead hook? I meant to say, because I'm not always at the track. That's the better question. If you're on a tire, you're on a drag radial, let's say, then the sweet spot is going to be somewhere around 400 horsepower to the rear wheels in a car. 400 horsepower to the rear wheels is going to allow, even with a little bit more of an aggressive converter, you're still going to be kind of in that sweet spot. You get into like 450, 475 to the rear wheels, and it's going to just be tougher to get the thing to hook out of the hole. You're going to be feathering that throttle a little bit to try to get to wide open throttle. 400 horsepower, it's pretty easy to pour the coal to it, and yeah, it's not going to mile an hour out the back door, but it's going to have the ability to basically just hook and book, and if that's what you're looking for. Or, to be honest, it's basically the same horsepower that a 392 puts to the ground. So it's going to take some practice. It's going to take a nice sticky tire, but you can still make them dead hook. I can tell you this. On the DBRs, that car won't dead hook. Revlon won't dead hook on the DBRs, but it'll haze them through first and second. But a 392 would absolutely dead hook with those tires. So, you know, just something to consider when you're putting a project together. That's kind of the breakover point, that 400 horsepower of the rear wheels. Let's see. Machine's checking to say, man, it's so hard to find 2010 plus C6Zs or C6ZR1s. Let's see. Yeah, I would say it is. A lot of those guys don't want to get rid of those cars. Especially the C6ZR1s, man. You can still find C6 Z06s down here, but ZR1s, well, they're limited production. They are difficult to come by. Let's see. GT's asking, do you know any great Mopar tuners in Florida? Not off the top of my head. Mike G saying, oh, that's good to hear. That's my first true nice car, so I want to take care of it. Like how it's been taking care of me. How about oil and filter suggestions? Sorry if I'm being a rookie about all this. No, man, this is how you learn. Filter, get the SRT filter from your local Mopar dealership. In fact, I just got through switching one out for Revlon. Oil, I mean, I'm fine with Mobile 1. I don't see any issue with that. 040 Mobile 1 is what I've been running in practically everything. Mainly because it's easy to get my hands on. and I've never had a problem with it. So there's that. But yeah, the SRT filter and like I say, I run Mobil 1. Then again, I do change my oil fairly regularly. The car hits about 3,000 miles. She's going to get an oil change. If not sooner. I've actually changed it about every 2,500 miles. This last oil change is the longest it's gone. I think it went 3,000. And I don't even think I put that many miles on it in a year. It might have been less than 3,000 miles, actually. Let's see. Riff saying, I am dropping my Hellcat Monday to get the 1050X injectors and dual pump from HHP along with a 309 diff installed. I'm just worried about having to install a roll cage on E85. Well, I mean, it's a nice problem to have, right? But I mean, man, I just haven't heard of anybody catching any static or heat from any track owners with a Hellcat going into the 9s. I just haven't heard of it. So you might run into some, but I just haven't heard of any. Kobe's saying, hey, I see a lot of YouTubers with broken down Hellcats. What's up with that? They didn't stick to the recipe. That's what the problem is. So, man, I got to tell you, that one of the issues that a lot of guys have is they get greedy. And everybody's guilty of this, but somebody will put a 295 pulley on their Hellcat, the next guy's got to go 285. Somebody goes 285, somebody's got to go 275. And then they want to try to get as much power as they possibly can out of pump gas. Again, not sticking to the recipe, doing some silly stuff, and they pop their cars. Plus, they're beating the living hell out of them. They're not data logging. They're not looking at what the car's actually doing under heavy load conditions. And, well, let's just, for whatever it's worth, these are mechanical things, and mechanical things break. So, I mean, there's that to consider, right? So normal wear and tear, normal breakage type stuff. But yeah, the other thing is that a lot of guys have been getting away with a lot of things for a long time, and we're now getting into, and some folks may not like hearing me say this, but it's just the God's honest truth. We've got guys that are saying that they can tune Mopars. And they're, oh, Mopar, I can tune Mopar. Yeah, because you lifted a tune off of somebody who actually does tune Mopars. The funny thing is that you don't know what parameters to change, or some of these tuners don't know what parameters to change when the boost starts to really get turned up, when camshaft profiles start getting thrown into the mix. And what ends up happening is that they think they know what they're doing, only to find out that they don't. And the way that they find out that they don't is that they end up popping a motor. So there's that too. But the main thing is that a lot of these guys have tried to turn their cars up to kill. The first cold snap comes around, and what do we call it? All together now. Moparmageddon happens every year. That's why my yearly track event is Moparmageddon. Because every year, everybody starts to get greedy. They start just getting stupid with tunes, trying to run that number. Well, pop goes the Mopar, and you know, that's just what happens, man. And again, this is when you're switching from summer grade to winter grade and the fuel quality is bad, or whatever the case is. You can blame it on a lot of different things, or a combination of a lot of different things. But at the end of the day, doesn't make it any less painful. Every year when I do the track rental, I tell everybody that's coming down, and this year's a little bit different because everybody that's going to be there are folks that have already been there. They already know what's up. They're all local, at least local to Texas for the most part, so they know what's up with that. But you know, even here in Texas, we've got high altitudes. In some areas, very high altitudes. But anyway, getting back to it, you know, I tell everybody, don't forget, it's that time of year. If the DA drops really low, and it's even in my deal, it says, congratulations, you made it, you're coming. If you set it to kill, might be a little game of Russian roulette. So anyway, let's see. Oh, Vince is checking in with GT. If Forza's down there, they might be pretty good at it. Oh, CJ's talking about Modern Redhead. He just added a Pro Charger to his cammed RT shaker. Cool. Let's see. GT's hanging out. Let's see. Oh, saying, by the way, that is with a 285 upper. Oh, with the 309 and 1050s? Yeah, that will be an easy, I mean, depending on your conditions, that's going to be about a 970, 980 car. Actually, maybe a 965, 970 car once you get done with it. So, I mean, if they give you any static, I'd be surprised. Machine's asking, what are your thoughts on the Shelby 350s, the newer ones, as well as the Predator block? I don't have any thoughts on them. As far as the Predator block, I've got nothing for you on that. It doesn't even come up on my radar, to be honest with you. But as far as the Shelby GT350s in general, man, I would have been even more in love with that car if it had a 410 or a 430 gear option. When I drove that car, I was bummed out because the interior, first of all, the interior is like it was tailor-made for me, and I've said that a lot of times. Love the ergonomics of that car. The only downside is that it had the sensation with that 373, but with an engine that's trying to spin at 8,600 RPM, you get the sensation that it never really accelerated like what you would think. And it had this weird sensation that nothing really fun happened with that car unless you were going at speeds which were highly illegal. And it would get there in a hurry, and they're a lot of fun to drive. And if you like high winding V8 sounds, the thing makes a beautiful noise. But it needs a different gear to be livelier. It's 500 plus horsepower, and it feels like it's not. You know, I liken it, this is going to sound so weird because this is such a bizarre parallel, but I liken it to driving a manual Hellcat Challenger, where you know that it's making a lot of power, it just, you never really feel the power like you think you're going to feel 700 horsepower, or like you think you're going to feel 500 plus horsepower in an NA lightweight car. It just never translates like that. So to me, the car needs at least a set of 410s, probably 430s, maybe even 456s, and then it would be the right car. Then it would be lively enough to where it would really be a lot of fun. But obviously, you know, keep an eye on the axles and all that, but I don't know, just my 2 cents. Let's see. Oh, Vince is checking in with GT. Yeah, I don't know anybody in Florida. Like I say, I don't really venture too far outside of my own little bubble. The stuff that I know, and I kind of stay to my lane on that. Some of those guys could be great. I just don't know enough about them. Let's see. Oh, Kevin's asking, can you get more boost out of the E-Force kit with pulleys? Absolutely you can. Absolutely you can. You get a lot of boost out of that thing. You can spool that thing up to 12, 14 pounds of boost pretty easily. GT's hanging out with Vince. Let's see, Rich saying, when I get my Hellcat on E85 with a 285 upper, will the 500 horsepower mode still be the same? It will still limit it to 5 pounds of boost. So, yeah, I mean, it will still basically be the same. It, you know, bypass is going to hang wide open on that thing. So, yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. CJ's asking, so how's the progress on the 72 GMC? Progress is, as it stands, not progressing. It's sitting in the barn doing nothing right now. Still need to get the transmission installed, need to get the leaf springs installed. and then drive the thing. You know, that 400 small block is going to be in the truck for a while, and at least until I can pull it and get it to a machine shop, have it worked on. But with transmission working, I really don't care. The thing's going to run just fine. Probably going to have to get an electric fuel pump for it, because modern gasoline is just not what it used to be. Back in the 70s, these things had no ethanol content to them. This ethanol content makes some of the issues with vapor lock just it's a pain in the ass, vapor lock with that thing. So we're gonna have to solve that problem, get everything else working out right, and then go cruise that truck. It'll be a lot of fun. James saying California is going to stop building gas cars in 2035. Who's building any vehicles in California? I don't know of any manufacturer that's building gasoline-powered cars in California. So I still don't know where that's coming from. Saying, is Texas going to do anything remotely similar? No. I'm feeling pressured to buy a Hellcat now. Well, now's a good time to buy one. But yeah, no. And then CJ saying, James, the governor of California doesn't have to do anything that the president does. Well, I don't know about any of that. I don't do politics, but I can tell you this. No, Texas doesn't give. This is oil country, man. We don't run on gasoline. We don't know what to do with it. Oh, Abdul. Oh, he's talking at Rift. Actually, yeah. When the bypass cracks open, you're at 5 pounds of boost. So you just fall into the tables that 5 pounds of boost would command. You're not going to hurt anything. CJ's asking, for the modern American V8, which is more superior, Coyote, LS, or Hemi? Depends on what your definition of superior is. You know, a lot of guys will say that the Hemi's going to be at the top of the list because it comes more, in a way, if you want to look at it, it's got a more aggressive camshaft. It's got variable runner intake manifold. It does a lot of great things for a 2-valve. So between the LS and the Gen 3 Hemi, I mean, stock for stock, the Gen 3 Hemi makes more power, so the Gen 3 Hemi wins that argument. So you can throw the LS to the side. Now it's a toss-up between Coyote and Hemi. They both do two different, they make power just in different ways. The Coyote has significantly better efficiency with both cams, intake and exhaust, being able to be adjusted independently. You can tune them both to make a significant amount of power. The Coyote is fantastic with its only weak point potentially being oil pump gears. Hemi could be the Hemi. I don't know, man. No matter who you say is better, there's going to be an argument for another one. When it comes to the modern Hemi and the Coyote, it's yin and yang, man. They're both part of the same circle. One does one thing really good, which is make bottom end torque and mid-range rush. The Coyote does its business at the far right-hand side of the dyno chart. So you can literally live in a world where one would never even see the other, so to speak. Now, all that being said, yeah, you throw boost at the Coyote and they just seem to eat it up. A lot of that has to do with the fact that the Coyote is bolted to vehicles that are smaller than what the Hemis come in. So there's, again, we get back to that dwell time of cylinder pressure, all of that comes into play there. But, you know, realistically speaking, how many Mustangs are running 9s with just a supercharger versus how many Challengers are running 9s with just a supercharger? How many Challengers are getting even close to the 9s with just a supercharger? Not many. Now, how many of those Mustangs blow something up in the process of trying to run 9s with just a supercharger? A whole lot of them. So, including the engine. So, you know, for one to say, you know, which one is better, you got to define better, and I think both of them have their place. Let's see. Oh, HU37 saying when it comes to tracks and rules, it depends on the state. My friends went to a Jersey track to enter a grocery getter race, and they made him get a helmet for a 19-second car. State law. That's kind of weird. Because the sanctioning bodies handle the track stuff. That's private property. GT Kilo saying, if I straight pipe my 5.7 with Cook's headers, am I losing horsepower? No, you're just losing your capability to hear. But you won't lose any power. And if you run an X pipe, it's going to sound super shrill. If you're going to do that, run an H pipe. At least try to make it sound good. Riff's asking, what kind of roll cage do I need to pass NHRA for faster than a 10.0? It's a 6-point is what you're going to need, technically. Abdul saying, what? I guess I was lied to. I think with mods, it would be more than 500. My mistake. No, because it's boost related. The bypass will crack open, won't let any more than 5 pounds go through. I can tell you that if you guys know Racer X's car, I played around with his car in 500 horse mode, and he's played around with it with Quick Brick, and it's a legit 500 horsepower, and that car is about 1,000 horsepower to the flywheel. Riff saying, I don't mean to keep bringing up the roll cage, but I budgeted for this build, and now I'm worried that I might need to spend a lot more on a cage. There's actually prefabbed 6 points for the LX platform. He'd say it. Maybe Speed Logics has got one. Let's see. Let me think. MMX may have one, or at least would have access to one. HHP may also have it. Check HHP first. Get a hold of Josh over at HHP and see if he's got one for you. CJ's asking if I've got any plans for Foxy. Not really. Not anything that would be performance related, aside from maybe a trans rebuild. Stuff like an ECU relocate, some trim pieces to be replaced. What else are you getting? Need to turn the rotors. Just goofy little stuff like that, but nothing too major. Car is way too much fun the way that it says. Riff saying, and I don't want to cut up my interior. He's saying the 6-point cage is $1,900. At least I don't know how much it will be to install. Yeah, $1,900 for a 6-point, man. It seems to be a little bit pricey. I mean, chromoly tubing isn't that expensive, is it? Who's that through? That seems to be a little bit pricey for just a 6-point. Maybe an 8-point, but not a 6-point. Abdul saying, just say F it and send it. My friend runs 9s and they haven't said anything to him. He ran a 990 at 139. Yeah, I mean, I've run in different cars. I've run as 9s, mid 9s, and nobody's really said anything. So, Tommy's saying, hey, what's up, buddy? I seen you at the track last night. Car run. Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, the car ran pretty good. You know, the humidity was killing us all, so that's kind of the big issue. But I was able to get good data. Again, that 4-5 shift weird thing, it just feels like the car is losing power or laying over. But the data would disagree with my butt, and the time slip disagrees with my butt and agrees with the data. So, I don't know, a humidity thing. I'll just leave it at that. Plus, I mean, I'm getting into some airflow areas that are pretty aggressive up there, and if there's a little bit of a torque limiting thing, I'm fine with that. It's not going to hurt my feelings, but the data wouldn't suggest that. So anyway, I'm at a loss. I got to try to poke my head in there and see what I can find. Yeah, good seeing you, man. Let's see. Alan's asking, is the Challenger RT V8 faster than the Camaro V6? Both stick? I don't think so, man. It would be a pretty damn good race. The Challenger would get it out of the hole, and well, no, the Challenger would beat it. I'm thinking Challenger. I don't know what I was thinking, but yeah, no, the Challenger, the 5.7 would be quicker. The V6 would not be. The Camaro V6 would walk all over the Challenger V6. CJ's asking, which modern GM V8 is better, LS or the new LT? Again, depends on what you consider better. The new LT heads are amazing. You can make a ton of power with those things, but they are more complicated. I would say that if I were doing a build, I wouldn't go anywhere near an LT. But there are guys that have had a lot of good luck with the LT. In fact, there's a lot of 10-second NA LT Camaros out there. So, I mean, there's that. So if we're talking about power production and just how easy is it to go fast, LT's probably going to be a little bit better. But then again, the LS or the LSX family would also include the LS7, LS3, LS6. So you've got a lot of really strong pedigree coming with the LS family that the LT just doesn't have. So, not to mention, you make a ton of power with any of the LSX platform engines. So, I don't think you need the LT particularly. The LT needs people more than people need the LT, because, you know, for every really fast LT car that's floating around out there, there's 50 Mustangs that are equally as quick, or damn near as quick. So there's that. Let's see. Alan's asking, would long tube headers increase horsepower on my Challenger RT? Yes, they will, but mainly because your Challenger RT has got some of the worst manifolds on a performance-oriented car. So that's why the long tubes will help you, but the short answer is yes. But I would highly suggest getting a tune to adjust your exhaust pulse transfer function so that your O2s know when to read what, or when to look for what they're reading. But that being said, just throwing the headers on there, you will pick up a little bit. Let's see. Abdul's asking, hey B, how do I know if my alternator is going out on a 2018 Charger Hellcat? I have a 285 upper pulley catless mids, JLT, ID 1300s, and you're on 93 octane. Well, best thing to do is just to look at, pull up your performance pages and pull up your alternator voltage and your battery voltage and see if it's keeping up. That's the absolute easiest way. That gauge is in your cluster right there in your dashboard. So, yeah, just pull up your performance pages. Go to gauges 1, I think is what it is. No, gauges 2, I think, has your battery voltage. Or you can just go to vehicle info in the center screen, and you'll get to that. It'll be its own individual gauge by itself, and it'll be part of that 5 gauge cluster that's in your performance pages. You want to see the thing charging at least 13 volts while it's sitting there. So 13, 14 volts is going to be perfectly fine. It's charging just fine. Ashley's saying, I have Cook's headers for sale now. Nice. Y'all get a hold of Ashley. She'll hook you up with some Cooks. What's up, girl? Is that car done yet? Come on now. Let's see. Rip saying, it seems like you're in California, especially the Bay Area, that they are very strict. Yeah, I was in the Bay Area at one point. Kobe's saying, I hear the BMWs are going back to the ZF and the M cars. The DCT is not the end all, I guess. Yeah, I'd be surprised if they didn't go back with the ZF. I mean, you got to remember that the HP, what is it, the HP 50 that's in the Supra and the Z4, and you know, they haven't strayed very far away from that setup. So I don't know. I'm just not a big fan. DCT is cool. It does a lot of cool things. The technology, you know, they're getting it kind of sorted out, but it's taken them a little bit, and it's taken, to be honest with you, the biggest issue is, well, I should say the biggest issues are the customers. You can't tell me that it's a good idea to try to throw a ton of power at a car with one of those transmissions when the simple cost of a clutch replacement is as high as it is. You know, lower power cars, yeah, fine, let it roll. You know, something less than 350, 400 horsepower probably will never have a problem with that transmission. It's when you start really trying to throw the coal at it where you start to run into problems. And if you don't believe me, look no further than the C8 Corvette, the GT500, any of the Lambos that use that transmission. They have so many nannies built into the tuning strategy just to keep that transmission alive. So I just know that coming into it. They've got a lot to unpack. Let's just put it that way when you're talking about tuning one of those transmissions and trying to put something together where you want to make a ton of power, but you got this transmission that's constantly trying to rein itself in. It can be a bit tough. Let's see. Abdul saying, yeah, my brother has a F90 M5. It has a ZF 8-speed, just like the Hellcats. No more DCT. Nice. Good trans, by the way. Trudy saying, hey, B. Mason, have you heard anything about the rumored 6.8 V8 Mustang coming for the Mustang and the Raptor? Man, yeah, I think that somebody got their wires crossed with that. I'm having a real hard time believing that the 6.8 is going to find any home with the Mustang. In fact, I'll take that a step further. Why would they put the 6.8 in the Mustang? I mean, it doesn't really make any sense. I mean, maybe from a packaging deal, maybe it's cheaper to make. I mean, God, how cheap would it have to be, though, to supersede the Coyote, which is presumably a significantly more efficient engine in terms of, you know, CAFE regulations, fuel economy, and all that other kind of good stuff. I just don't see them putting the 6.8 in a Mustang. If they do, it's fine. I mean, I'm stoked if they do, actually. But to put what I'm to understand, I don't know if this is the case, but let's say it's a short deck 7.3. What purpose would it serve? Are they trying to get 530 horsepower out of the thing? They can do that with the Coyote. And they can do it like right now. I mean, they kind of already sort of done it. So anyway, I don't know what they're shooting for with that. I think that somebody must have got their wires crossed talking about the 6.8 going into a Mustang. Again, I'm not saying that I'll eat my hat if that engine winds up in a Mustang, because you guys have to remember that back in the day, Ford had a pair of SM95 Mustangs. One of them had the Lightning engine in it. The other one had this what would have been a predecessor to the Coyote engine. They had paraded them out, not the FR500, although that is also another one of the cars that, you know, was it might have been a forced induction 4-valve motor, something like that. It's been way too long ago. I can't remember all the details. But the idea was, you know, a big torquey engine versus this high-winding 4-valve engine. What would be better? And then later on, when the S197 gets released, we get the GT500. It's kind of the best of both worlds, and everybody forgets about these one-off kind of, you know, test mule, proof of concept, however you want to call it, cars were released. So think of it in those lines. You know, you've got the 6.8, it's not supercharged, but the 6.8 2-valve probably would be real torquey, lots of fun to drive, good horsepower, crazy torque, the whole bit. What transmission are they going to put behind it? What type of fuel economy are we looking at? What is it going to look like in terms of packaging? All of those things would have to be addressed, but I can tell you that I don't see the Coyote going away anytime soon, and the idea that a 2-valve engine would supersede this 4-valve just makes it real difficult to buy. Now, that being said, if Ford just got nutty and said, oh, we're going to bring out the Galaxy, and it's this, you know, this Challenger-sized car that had this 6.8 in it, that would be pretty cool, you know, or a, you know, Charger-sized car. You know, that would be insane, right? But, you know, it just doesn't, obviously that's not a thing. So, but it's just fun to think about. CJ's asking now, of all the Gen 3 Hemis, which one is better? 345, 372, 392? So here's the thing. Of all the Gen 3s, the Hellcat's the best. It's the most robust. It's the most heralded, if you want to look at it. It is the yardstick as a platform, powertrain, and everything else. But for me, and that's an objective look at the engine. It's the most powerful, the most durable, the most, okay? But I really like the 392. I am a huge fan of the 392 because it is all the usable power that you could ever use, you could ever want. And yeah, the Hellcat is great if your life exists on a drag strip, but if it doesn't, and you're nowhere near a drag strip, and you're just looking for something that sounds fantastic, that hauls the mail, that does everything that you could ever hope an engine to do, and hope a car to do, the 392 is incredibly difficult to beat. So, objectively, the Hellcat. There's not even a question. There's not even a remote question. Subjectively, the 392, because to me, the NA Hemi is still kind of the pinnacle of street performance engines. You know, the way that it was back in the 60s and 70s, at least if you follow along with the marketing. And the usability of the power, the ability to just have something that is fun, that sounds good, that's not really intimidating in terms of, you know, to newer drivers. It's going to teach you how to be a much better driver. But, you know, on the street with a set of drag radials, the thing will just absolutely put a huge grin on your face. Run 12-second quarter-mile times on the street with the thing. And that's a really fun place to be. So hopefully that answers your question. But that's kind of my thoughts on those two. Let's see. Raging Bull's asking, what year Hellcat is best to buy pre-owned? 17 and up are technically the best. Those are going to be the non-mass air cars. In other words, it just doesn't have a mass air meter. Not that the mass air meter is really needed. It's kind of a vestigial organ, if you like. So 17 and up does not have a mass air meter. It's got a better drive shaft. The 17 and up have, at least anecdotally, a little bit thicker wall drive shaft. It's not as thick as the Red Eye Demon drive shaft, but it is pretty close in terms of just durability if you're going to be taking the thing to a drag strip on a sticky tire. The other part of that is that the Uconnect started to act a little bit better in 2017. From there, you get into 2018 and 2019, where the Uconnect features are even better still. And so, you know, 6 to 1, half a dozen with that part of it, because that's kind of the gimmicky part. But the glitchiness of the Uconnect system really started to go away in 17 and 18. So 17 and up, 18 kind of gets the win on that. And then from there, it's, you know, anything newer than that is good. Plus, you've moved away from you know, any blower issues or anything else that was going on with the early, or I should say not the early ones like Revlon, because Revlon is an early release, but you know, those mid 2015, 2016 cars that had the blower issues. I will say this though, a lot of those cars have had that blower problem addressed at this point. So just something to think about. Rick is asking, I would say if you're not getting a red eye, then a low mile Hellcat, as in 2015 to 2017, would be good. Yeah, I mean, the 15s are great. The only problem is you got to check the build date on them. But it's fun. I like the 15s because that's the first year. I mean, that's the release of the Hellcat. This is the car that would become the yardstick. Even to this day, Hellcat, is it faster than a Hellcat? In the quarter mile, will it beat a Hellcat? Nobody cares what else it'll beat. Any other car is irrelevant. Will it beat a Hellcat? Don't know. But I can tell you this, you got to line them up to find out. And again, the Hellcat is the benchmark standard for drag strip for these stock cars. Let's see. Oh, CJ's talking about GM, the 6.6 Ecotec gas V8 for the 2535 Silverado, and a replacement for the 6-liter LS Vortec V8. Could be. Don't know. Anthony's saying, hit the thumbs up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see. Abdul said, it drops as I'm driving, talking about his alternator volts. He said, I did pull a battery, light came on, I replaced the starter because the starter was clicking, didn't click anymore, but now I think my alternator is bad. Voltage drops, it turns over, tries to crank, but it won't start. Yeah, that's definitely an alternator. Need to find out why it would be eating an alternator. Typically, it's rare for an alternator to go that early, but you should still be under warranty, so I would go get that thing dolled up. Oh, here we go. Ashton's saying, I've got the motor out. We're about to switch the cam and then start setting up the turbos. Oh, it's going to get fast quick. I like it. Yeah, I'll be bringing, I don't know, should I just bring the truck by? Once the trans is done, I'll be driving the truck around for probably, I don't know, 6 or 8 months before I pull that 400 and get it rebuilt. So you guys will be seeing that. But yeah, I can't wait to see how that thing comes along, girl. You got to keep us all informed. Keep us in the loop, man. Rip is saying, is anybody else having a hard time pushing the thumbs ups? I don't know. 29 folks didn't have a problem with it. Keep pressing though. Like, subscribe, share. Let's see, we're saying, let's all hit thumbs up if it works. Yeah, no kidding. Hopefully it does work. Thumbs ups. Kevin's asking, thoughts on throttle body air splitters? Do they work? No, they don't. Don't waste your money with that stuff. Rip's asking, your Mustang is so clean that I thought the reflection on the was on the Hellcat on the comp wall. Oh, yeah, no, it is. It's the top of the hood. Actually, it's dirty. I did some yard work. Got some dust in here. But yeah, it's the reflection of the comp cams banner on the hood of the Mustang. That's awesome. HU37 saying Ford is big on the EcoBoost. Other than the Coyote and the 3.3 V6 base engine, everything else is turbo. I don't see a 6.8 in the Mustang unless they make an SUV called a Mustang. Well, there's that. You know, and I'll still go back to saying this. I am surprised. I mean, I am on record from quite a few years ago as being surprised that the EcoBoost at the 3.5 liter EcoBoost didn't make it into the Mustang. I know that sounds kind of weird, but man, a little bit more of a performance minded version of that thing, maybe making 450 horsepower, would have been, I mean, just flat nasty. I mean, think of the torque the thing would make for the GT. So anyway, I was convinced in 2015 that car was going to have an EcoBoost V6 of some kind. Obviously, that wasn't the thing, but I couldn't believe that they didn't offer that. But oh well. Mike's asking, what would you recommend on an RT Challenger to get a nice deep rumble out of the exhaust but still be able to listen to music and answer calls when driving around? MagnaFlow. MagnaFlow catback will give you a nice deep sound, and it won't be overbearing. As long as you keep the cats on the car, it won't be overbearing. It'll sound really good. Trudy saying, if GM discontinues the Camaro after 2023, what would you guess would be its replacement? Would they continue going for another modern pony sports car, or maybe try to go retro muscle? Man, I tell you what would replace it? Nothing. I mean, they would have to go back. It'll eventually maybe get another Camaro. I'm really not sure. If you listen to what GM is saying, they're talking about that thing sticking around. The problem with the Camaro, guys, is that it's like they tried too hard. And I see where they're going with this. The retro thing, I don't want to say it's getting a little bit long in the tooth, but it is starting to get a little bit panderous, if nothing else. I mean, I love the way the Challenger looks. I love that butch look that the Challenger brings to the table, but man, I got to tell you, the retro thing, really, but you have to ask yourself, though, is it really retro anymore? I mean, this is what the Challenger looks like, and it's looked like this now for, well, since 2008. So what's funny is that, I mean, damn, that's a lot of years. It's funny, it's retro, but it's retro to itself as the second coming of the Challenger, which was the second coming of the Challenger in 2008. It's just kind of funny when you think about it. The car has been around. Let me think about this. It's got a 13-year, 12-year model, but a 13-year model run. The car is based off of a car that had a 4-year model run. It's the newest model of the Challenger, has been around for basically 2 more livelihoods, if you will, 2 more lifespans of the car that it was supposed to emulate. So when you look at it like that, is it retro? Well, it's retro only in that from 2008 to 2014, it was basically the same car. And in 2015, it got its facelift, and it's basically been the same car since 2015. But it's just funny. Is it retro? Yeah, I guess it's retro, but at this stage, it's like second-hand retro. Anyway, I'm just kind of thinking out loud, kind of rambling here. But what would the Camaro be? Man, look, I don't know. If they're smart, they go with a retro theme, right? I mean, that's kind of where the money's at least the smart money. Make the thing livable. Make me a GM fan again. How about that? I wanted... First of all, I like the Gen 5 Camaro quite a bit. You think it would be just as organic as you could think of, just go Gen 5 Camaro, Gen 6 Camaro. For some reason, my brain could not wrap around the Gen 6. I don't know if it was a door card being maybe a little bit higher, a windshield being a little bit lower. I don't know. There's no real good rhyme or reason, but I sat in that Gen 6 and it just did not do anything for me. I didn't like it. Felt claustrophobic, really. So for me, do something new, do something cool. If you want to go with a retro theme, fine. What would you make? Would you make a 69, 68, 67 variant? The Gen 1? Would you go Gen 2 with a split bumper type of look? What would you do? It's kind of hard to say. But the proportions that they have are kind of hinting at Gen 1, so I guess you'd have to stick with that. Just make the thing a little bit more livable. That's about it. But I mean, that's part of a wish list that will probably never see reality, because if the Camaro does go away, it just goes away. And I guess those resources go into Corvette. The only issue there is, I mean, not to get too far off the subject, but the Corvette is just not the Corvette that you grew up with. And not because it's a mid-engine, whatever, that I'm not even talking, or the DCT transmission. But the Corvette as a brand is just so overpriced now. I don't care what technology is in it. It's so overpriced for the normal guy and girl that want to get into a Corvette. And it could have before. If you had the idea with the Corvette was, if you were established in a full-time job, let's say you're a single girl, full-time job, paying your bills, and let's say you take on an extra account, you work a little bit of overtime, what have you, you could afford that Corvette. And she could take that thing to the drag strip, rip on it, do autocross with it, haul ass down the freeway, just have a ball with it, long smoky burnouts. That could be her thing that is in her garage for those purposes. You can't do that anymore. The Vet now, you ain't talking about $60-something thousand. I mean, anybody got $60,000 they can scratch together right now? I doubt it. You're doing better than me anyway. But the other side of that is, it's not $65,000. It's $80,000. The Corvette is an $80,000 proposition once you start adding any of the options list to it. I mean, it goes from 65 to 75, I think, just by, looking at it long enough. The point of it is this. The Corvette really is never going to take the place of the Camaro from a price point of view. But without the Camaro, which is kind of it's that attainable hot. You've got hot, like talking about girls. You got hot and you got attainable hot. The Corvette thinks that she's unobtainably hot. That thing is like, meh, as far as I'm concerned. I'm more of a C6 guy, C7 guy. Grand Sport and Z06, by the way. But the Camaro was attainable, and a lot of guys love that car, and without it, I think Camaro and really the I don't know, American muscle car, pony car, whatever you want to call it, I think that community suffers if that car is not around. The problem is you don't see a lot of the people with those cars taking them to the drag strip. I mean, you might have a couple here and there, but to be honest, there's only a few people campaigning those cars that I see. Those that are campaigning them are doing really well with them and are screaming with them. I mean, we're talking, deep into the 10s into the 9s on, boosted or spray. That's there, but there's maybe one or two cars that would fall into that category. Whereas with the Mopars, on the other hand, dude, I would say that Challengers and Chargers make up easily 20 to 25% of the field on any given night. The place is infested with them, and for good reason. By the way, I was talking about that 392 versus 6.2 Hellcat thing. Lots of 392 cars at the drag strip. I mean, a whole lot of them. They're out there having a lot of fun, running, low 12s, high 11s with hardly anything done to the car other than maybe a tire. Just something to consider. A lot of those are there. The other, let's say quarter to half of the cars there are Mustangs of whatever years you want to come up with, and then various drag stuff, and then the rest of them would just be all kinds of different street cars of every make, model, and year and all of that. So I guess the point that I'm making is, if the Camaro goes away, does it matter? I feel like it does, but I just don't want to see GM shortchange themselves in that very important market. But oh yeah, and we weren't even talking about the ZL1. The problem is that the ZL1, when they show up, they do okay. But what sucks about the ZL1 is the Hellcat. You line up a ZL1 against a Hellcat, it's not going to end well for the ZL1. Drag pack for drag pack. And I'm not saying that, it's Hellcat, whatever. I'm not saying it because of that. I'm saying that's the result of the drag race. So I'd like to see the ZL1 get an upgrade. I'd like to see the ZL1 come at it with like that Maggie 2650 or something to get it into the mix, to get the whole, flavor of that thing back into the mix with these supercharged hot rods. And, the NA stuff, it's just got to fall where it lies. Anyway, GT's asking, what's your opinion on Hellcat swaps? I think they're great. I think they're really expensive. But yeah, if you can do it, I say go for it. I mean, I've driven Hellcat swap Jeep Wrangler, which was kind of interesting. So that's the only swap vehicle that I've had my hands on that I've actually driven. Cool truck. Let's see. Rip saying I was going by price. Oh, King's High. It said, this is a rant. Why does the governor kick in on my V6 Charger at 115? The reason why is because of the speed rating of the stock tires. Saying it was still pulling. Damn Subaru caught up and passed me. Damn Dodge. No, that's the speed limiter on most of these vehicles. And this is something that's been around for decades, is primarily based around the speed rating of the tires that come stock on them. Sean East checking in. Thank you very much. Asking, did you learn anything last night about your tune? The only thing I learned about my tune is that it works great. Nothing that I could find in any compare files. Nothing that I could find on. He's talking about that 4.5 ship. He and I were talking about it. Damn, freaking mustache and beard are itchy as shit tonight. Nothing that I could see. Everything looks perfectly fine. I just think that it was crappy air. Nice low DA. I had a really good airflow number, but a really crappy humidity number. And in talking to one other person about it, we kind of had the same impression that that was what that was. Just, you know, I've got a gram per second of 1.36, 1,000 grams per second. Anyway, I had 1.36, high humidity, but the car's only trapping 132. Yeah, that's probably what that was. So anyway, it's the only thing I can think of, and nothing weird going on in the tune. Like I said, I did a bunch of compare files, didn't see anything that would give me a reason. So a reason to question. And the data looks so pretty. The data on Revlon right now, by the way, is super, super clean. I mean, dead clean. So she's a happy girl. And when I say that, what I'm saying is that knock sensor voltage is low. Timing, I mean, it's following the timing curve beautifully all the way down the track, not pulling any timing for any weird reasons. Injector duty cycle got as high as 90, I think it was 92 or might have been 93%, but again, still falls in line. I've got basically, I've got 2,000 feet to play with. So I've got basically down to about negative or minus about negative 1,000 foot DA is about as deep as I can get with the fuel that I'm commanding with those injectors. So that'll kind of give you an idea what the limit is for it. But yeah, so far she is super, super happy. But King's Eye, that's why your car is doing that. But thank you, man. I appreciate that, Sean. Oh, Anthony said if they put the 6.8 in SUV, that would be awesome. I have a 3.5 EcoBoost in my Explorer. Wish I could have gotten a Coyote option. Yeah, no doubt. Especially if you consider you could get a Mountaineer with a 4.6 4-valve. Why can't you get a Coyote in the new stuff? Let's see. Abdul saying, thanks, Pete. Respect. Thumbs up. Thank you very much. The car is modified, so I do all the work myself other than the tuning, so I don't think I'll take to dealer. Yeah. I wanted to get your viewpoint. Greatly appreciated, brother. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you hanging out with us, man. Always good to get your perspective. Let's see. Oop, I bumped this thing and it went crazy. Timeout. Hold on. Here we go. Raging Bull's asking, does the 1320 have an upgraded drive shaft over the Scat pack? No. It does have 41 spline axles, but it does not have anything different with the diff or with the drive shaft. So nothing there. It does have different suspension settings, but that's really it. That's the extent of the differences. And again, thank you, Sean. I appreciate that, brother. CJ's asking, what do you think of Borla? Good stuff. I did a resonator delete on my S-Type on 2011 F-150 with a 5-liter Coyote V8, and it almost sounds like a Borla. Yeah, they're fine. Borla, the only downside to Borla, they're a little bit raspy, and again, it depends. If you're running an X-pipe, I just don't like the sound of Borla. CJ saying, I prefer the 5-liter Coyote over the EcoBoost. A lot of folks do. Riff's hanging out with Sean. Brent saying, what's up, y'all? What's up, Brent? CJ's hanging out with Anthony. Anthony G. Got Anthony and G mixed all at the same time in my mouth. Let's see. Dan saying, how about sealing the top of the air filter box on a factory shaker car? I messed with that using cardboard and saw a noticeable reduction in IAT, particularly at a stationary idle. You know, I don't know, man. I would say, yeah, go for it. I mean, if you can block it off and see some benefit from it, that'll be great. The only thing is that the temperatures drop so quick once you whack on the gas that it really doesn't seem to functionally make that big of a difference. It could, though, help in your 60 foot at the drag strip. So I don't know anybody that's done it and tested it to see if there was any significant difference one to the next to the next. In other words, did you run a 165 before and now you're running consistent 160s in the same conditions? Then in that case, it might do well. But a lot of the times, what shows on the dash as being maybe a benefit ends up really not being a big benefit in the real world. So just kind of there. Dan saying the original Challenger had a 5-year run, 70 to 74, so 5 years. That's right. What was I thinking? Did I think 73? Maybe I was thinking 73. See, Rich saying, I hate to say this because I have 2 Challengers now and had one before, but they are starting to look stale. Well, yeah, unfortunately, they brought in the wide body, which, you know, some folks are into, some folks aren't. That's nice. I just maybe mix in something. So, and to that point, I haven't done a separate video on this, and maybe I should, but it's real hard to get excited about anything with Dodge right now because there's just nothing to really get excited about. Question mark? I mean, yeah, the TRX is pretty damn cool. So, kind of excited about that, but I mean, TRX, okay. Hellcat Durango, I mean, it's another hot SUV. They've already got the Trackhawk. Okay, so the Durango's a 3-row. All right, well, I mean, if it fits, I sit, right? I mean, the cat's going to go in that thing anyway, so there you go. I don't know, man. There's nothing really to get worked up over, and you know, no news on a new Viper. The CUDA, I mean, people have already forgotten about that rumor at this stage of the game. So I put the word out to a friend of mine that works at a Dodge dealership. I said, hey, is there anything exciting coming from Dodge in like the next year or two? And crickets. You know, it's you know, I can't even get excited. Like if I wanted to sell part of the fleet and buy something new, I wouldn't even know there's nothing to buy. There's nothing to get excited about. So I'm just going to keep playing with what I got. Let's see. Brent saying, I need to look. I need a new look and need to take some weight out of them as well. Something, yeah. But the thing is, though, let's not get carried away with that narrative because you don't want to Mustang the Challenger. There is a point where you don't want to change what works. And again, right now the Challenger is on one side of the bookcase, Mustang is on the other. They are bookends for a driving experience. There's room at the table for both of them and to happily coexist. It's just where the Camaro came in and just, I don't know, kind of would screw things up. I mean, the problem is the Camaro modified is really, really, really fast. In fact, you can argue that the Camaro in modified form is faster than both of them. The 392 and the Coyote. In fact, it's easily faster than both of them once you start really throwing the wood to them. But here's the catch. nobody likes the car, nobody's buying them, so they're not really modifying them, and manufacturers don't worry about who modifies what. They're talking about stock for stock, and journos certainly don't. So there's that to consider as well. And unfortunately, where we're sitting right now, there's a good chance that we won't have a Camaro to kick around, regardless of how much ass they're kicking around on the drag strip, once you've thrown basically the kitchen sink at them. Trudy's saying, I love the B515 SRT Challenger, but man, I'd spend some money I don't have for a revival of the Trans Am. If it had its own Trans Am specific power plants, yes, larger displacement, higher flowing heads, make that Trans Am something new, something exciting. I would probably be able to get behind that myself. Kobe's asking, is the new 2020 Hellcat cold air intake that the car comes with worth changing to a leg maker? No. Keep the stock stuff. It's better. Let's see. Riv saying, also, I hate how my 2009 SRT8 and Hellcat look like most, if not all, Challengers. Yeah, I know. CJ is saying his mom loves the 5th gen Camaro. Talking about swapping out the 480 horse LS3 when the V6 goes out. V6 ain't never going to go out. Might as well start buying that motor now, dude. Trudy's saying, yeah, I heard that GT500 and C8 vets are suffering the dreaded dealer markups that the Hellcats initially had. Yeah, a lot of them are. And, I mean, there's that, but, I mean, dude, listen, living in H-Town, baby, we got money in this city, and there's a lot of folks with GT500s here and Corvettes. They're just not taking them to the drag strip, man, and for whatever reason. Daniel Lopez saying, my 89 IROC handled better than my 2012 Challenger RT. Well, my 92 RS handled better than my 2015 SRT, so I understand that completely. New IROC with similar seating position, an LS1 and independent rear suspension would be amazing. Yeah, something along that line would be pretty cool. Shawnee's asking, how much horsepower can the 5.0 10-speed handle? The jury's kind of out on that. But just in talking to some of these guys, about 650 to the rear wheels is about the limit before you really have to start doing stuff to that transmission. Is that the real limit? I don't know. I would say keep it simple. Keep that number around 600 horsepower to the rear wheels, and you'll probably be pretty safe. You know, I had a couple of guys in the know tell me that 650 was really the functional limit, but the problem with those cars is it depends on what kind of power that you're putting to them. Are you hitting them with spray or a root style blower? That's going to put more stress on the transmission because you've got so much more torque with a much higher inertial load to overcome. So in saying that, you know, it might be able to manage less. If you're running something like a Pro Charger, then you might be able to get away with a little bit more, but it's just going to depend on your method, excuse me, your method of boost. Rift is saying, surprisingly, if you look right now, used Hellcats are going up in price. So I guess it's not surprising, but it is happening. I can see that. Let's see. HU37 saying, of all the brand GM eliminated, the only trademark they kept is Pontiac. Don't be surprised if GM replaces the Camaro with the Trans Am. Fools would buy cars with a decal of a screaming chicken. Hell, I would. That's some cool stuff. Yeah, and Pontiac, I'd like me some Pontiacs. Daniel's saying, I would too. I'd buy one. Listen, one of my favorite cars of all time Super Duty 455, whether it's 1973 or 1974, I think they both look amazing. In Matador Red, that would be the car for me. Love those things. Riff saying one of my dream cars is a C7 ZR1. There were two of them at the drag strip last night, as a matter of fact. One was one was yellow. What was the other color? The other one might have been black or something. I don't know. There's actually a couple of them that show up there fairly regularly. Mike G saying, notice one of the indexing tabs on the air filter box is broken and was just kind of debating on replacing the whole thing with an engine cold air intake with the dry filter. Think I should? Nope. Get a new lid for your stock stuff. CJ's asking, what do you think of the GM 81 Vortec? It's a good tow motor. That's about as far as I would take it. LT from Power Nation swapped it out. Yeah, I mean, it's great if you like 4,500 RPM, lots of torque. It would make a great boat motor. Something you can just run wide open, let the thing hang at like 4,700 RPM all day long. Yeah, they're great for that, but man, the LS basically hammered in the death nail for any big block. I mean, yeah, you can make a lot of power with one, but I don't know. I wouldn't go looking to swap one of those when you can easily make plenty of power with an LS. Just my 2 cents on that. CJ say, I'm sure a lot of Mopar guys prefer the 5-liter Coyote in the F-150. Yeah, they do. Rick's asking, what do you think about going full E85 on a Hellcat? If you've got access to E85, it is, and I mean readily available, high quality, easy access to E85, and you're taking your car to the drag strip a lot and you're beating on the car a lot, it is a wise decision, or at least it is not a dumb decision to go with E85. E85 is easy, real easy to tune with, just in terms of its knock threshold. It's really hard to hurt something on E85. Now, all that being said, there are some limitations to it. And some things you have to remember when you're running on E85. Number one, your oil change intervals are going to be cut in half. If you're used to changing oil every 3,000 miles, you're going to be changing about every 1,500 miles now if you're running straight E85. Your range is significantly compromised. It's compromised to the tune of about 30%. So just know that coming into this conversation as well. But in terms of making power, good old Kern is super hard to beat. A good high quality E85 on a boosted car will easily support 10 to 15% more horsepower. And that's a huge deal, and safely and long term, the whole bit. And that's a very conservative number. It may even be closer to 30% in terms of what it can support safely. But do you do it on a stock car? Well, look, the best you can hope for, the best case scenario, let's say you've got a stock Hellcat. And we know that the record for 93 octane, the way that my car says, 93 octane is a 1016. Let's just call it a 1016. And we know that the outright record on E85 for a stock boost car, and let's say the exact same shape that my car is in, let's say it's a 990 just for the sake of argument. That is a 3/10 and change difference. So that's the difference in terms of performance, in terms of how much boost you can actually, how much timing you can actually throw at the thing. The more boost that you run, the more that is going to start to matter. And of course, that delta really starts to peel off, where your peak power that you're capable of running, honestly, like real talk, honestly, 93 octane might be they call it 750 to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno with a Hellcat. I mean, that is really stretching 93 octane. And I mean really stretching it. That's like the absolute best day, green screen, not corrected, whole bit, right? You can run 1,000 horsepower to the rear wheels with E85 and still have, headroom from there. So, I mean, damn, right there, that's 33% difference. So you've got to figure that, do you plan on going heavier later on down the line? Then go ahead and get everything ready to go E85. If you're not planning on it and you're just looking to try to maximize what you can get out of stock boost, then yeah, you make the switch to E85 with the caveat that you've got to continuously and religiously check your E85's quality. Unless you plan on running like Ignite E85, which will completely defeat the whole reason that you want to go 85, because 85 is cheap race gas. Ignite E85 is expensive race gas. So anyway, hopefully that you can digest that and kind of get my thoughts on that. But it's just one of those things where it just... Is it worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. You can pick up ET. You will pick up ET in power once your tuner gets a hold of it and starts to dial it in. I guess the big question is it worth it to you? And only you can really answer that question. Let's see. Zach Chat saying, I really want an MT6 Hellcat. Your thoughts? So I am on record as saying I'm not a huge fan of the manual transmission Hellcats. That 226 first gear is not aggressive enough to help get one of these things moving from a dead stop. Now, once it's moving, a little bit different story, but for what I like to do with the cars, I'm not a big fan of it. Now, if you want to take one of these tanks road course, go for it. I mean, there's plenty of guys that do, by the way. People are, Hellcat on a road course. The guys that can't actually don't do half bad. So, in fact, some of them do surprisingly well. But for me, if you put it like this, if you like manual cars, they're pretty good. The only downside is that in first gear, they can be a little bit sluggish by comparison to an automatic car. But from there on, I mean, it's good. They're fun. They're good. They're fun. It's just, it's not going to feel like 700 horsepower, and still going to need a tire anyway. But you know what? With all that being said, it does help them to hook a little bit better on the street. Once you kind of roll out of the throttle, roll off the clutch, and then start to roll into the throttle, yeah, it helps a little bit. It just doesn't give you that, that really hauling ass feel that the automatic does. But if you like driving the stick, they are fun to drive just as a stick car. X-Chat saying, I heard the earlier Hellcats had issues. Is that true? It's only really true for mid-year production 2015s and early 2016s. That was issues with the supercharger. Aside from that, no issues whatsoever. Machine saying for the Camaro, they may make it a competitor for the Mustang Mach-E or the Tesla Model X. Maybe. Dan saying Dodge is not exciting. Is there a factory supercharged Chevrolet Tahoe? What does that have to do with Dodge being exciting? A factory supercharged Tahoe would probably be a lot more affordable than anything that Dodge is offering, considering that the Trackhawk is what? I mean, realistically, 90 grand, 85 grand. The Durango is how expensive? What's that TRX going to chime in at in terms of cost? Yeah, so there's all of that. you start to look at it and say, well, is it exciting? Well, not for the guy that is trying to campaign something on the grassroots level, unless, he's just only looking at a 1320. The Hellcat stuff is pretty fun too. And I guess when you start to look at the cost of the Corvette and the GT500, the Hellcat is actually starting to look like a bargain. So 2 thumbs up for that. But aside from that, anything new coming from Mopar? Nothing to get excited on there. So no, nothing really all that exciting about vehicles that you have to be doing extremely well to afford, only to say, and only to have the marketing department and their guys, what's his face, say, grow within our brand. Well, the problem is that they want folks to grow within their brand, but there is a ceiling to earnings. There's a ceiling to what people are willing to give up to get that Hellcat Durango that's only going to be available for 1 year for reasons unknown, or to buy that Trackhawk. The word that was used was, hold on, let me see if I can remember how it was phrased, that the people that were buying Trackhawks were former Hellcat owners that had families. That was a big deal. Well, that's fine, but really? Like $85,000 for an SUV, I guess that's the going rate these days, though. I mean, if you look at what Tahoes go for, or if you look at what Expeditions and Navigators and everything else goes for, I mean, I guess that's the going rate. But, for somebody that's trying to do this stuff on a budget, mind you, that, let's be real here, they keep marketing to this past. They keep marketing to this lifestyle that was a thing back in the 60s and very early 70s. A point in time, let me remind you that the cars made up a significantly smaller portion of the end users or end buyers' annual income, where the annual income back in 1969 was a flat $5,000 a year, transferable to 2020, by the way, where that was like $50,000 a year on average. A Hemi Cuda would cost you $4,400. A Roadrunner would cost you, let's say, $3,000. A Hemi Roadrunner would cost you $3,000. The equivalent of $40,000 or $30,000. For that type of exposure, you could buy 2 of those vehicles based on the exchange rate and the inflation rate from then to now. So when I say exciting, I'm not all that excited about cars that are so stratospherically priced that only journalists and the occasional guy that shows up to the drag strip is going to be able to enjoy that car for what it is. Make something on the NA side. Bring the Viper back, NA and supercharged. Throw a 6.4 in the Ram 1500. Make something cool. Make something interesting for the folks that have been flying your flag on a grassroots level for how many years now? Make something like that. And if you're going to keep falling back on tradition to try to drag excitement out of the brand, cool. Bring back the Cuda, bring back the Viper, bring back the Warlock for the Ram 1500 guys. Little Red Express kind of an idea. That's what I would start getting excited about. Not yet another Hellcat powered variant of whatever. It just waters down the gene pool. And by the way, Hellcat power plants aren't getting any cheaper on the used market in the wrecking yards. So there's that too. Anthony's saying, love my manual Hellcat, highly recommend. They're fun to drive. Dr. Div's saying, late, but I'm in. Nice. Oh, Floyd's checking in. So Floyd, we got a chance to hang out at the drag strip last night. Saying, hey, Mr. B, thanks for the Hellcat 101 last night at the track. Yeah, I'm very happy to. Saying it was cool to chat with you about the plans for my car and keeping the warranty semi-safe, ready for my drag pack and making some passes. I like it. Can't wait for you, buddy. This will be a lot of fun. You can have a lot of fun with that car, man. HU saying, I like that the Challengers all look the same. You can buy a 5-year-old car modern and save money. That's true, but somebody's got to buy them new too. Riff saying, unless you're paying a lot for a Challenger that is newer and better model than model. Let's see. Hang on. Trudy saying, Haley Mason, how would you compare the ZF 8-speeds and the 6.4s and the Hellcats versus the Ford GM 10-speeds? So the Ford 10-speed versus the ZF 8-speed, first of all, I don't want to get into the 10-speed versus HP 70 versus HP 90. It's similar. It's kind of similar to an HP 70 in its ability to handle power. So there's that. But in terms of gear ratios, they are functionally identical. First, second, third, and fourth gear. The 10-speed has a more aggressive fifth gear, which is where that transmission does its dirty work. On the tail end of the track, that more aggressive fifth gear helps a ton. There's a pretty decent drop from fourth to fifth in the HP 70 and HP 90, and that drop is less in that 10-speed. So there's that. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of differences. They're both great transmissions, the HP line and the 10R line. They're both really good transmissions. They're actually really good for their intended purpose and power levels and everything else. Again, I think that 10R80 is good for realistically 600 horsepower to the rear wheels. You'll probably get away with more, but 600, maybe 650 to the rear wheels before things are gonna have to start getting replaced. And obviously the HP 90 handles a lot more power than it's rated for, but the HP 70, again, you start looking at that 535 foot-pounds of torque, that 550, 575 horsepower on a Mustang dyno, start to possibly get some slip out of it at that point. But HP 90, no such issues. Let's see. CJ's talking about something. I don't know what he's a transom. I don't know what that is. Riv saying, when it comes to roll racing, does the 309 diff on a Hellcat help or hurt? It helps it. It'll help you drag up to about 150 a little bit easier. Quicker, I should say. So what I like, and I've got some 60 to 130 videos up, kind of give you an idea for what a stock boosted car does in that condition. But with a 309 gear, it will carry, it really what it does is it carries that 125 to 140 significantly better than the 262 at stock power levels. Let's see. Oh, Dr. is saying, I got a manifold. I need to get your way, but damn, we have been busy. Paid a guy today to come pressure wash and clean the floors. It's been nuts. Beats the alternative, though. Absolutely. Yeah, let me know. Let me know when you want to do that. The 6.4 manifold is ready, too. HE37 is hanging out with Daniel Lopez. Let's see. Dresden saying, I made a transmission jack cradle for my floor jack with some junk engine parts and a flex plate as the cradle. Nice. Reduce, reuse, recycle. Any advice for a NAG1 converter swap? Do's and do nots, etc. Well, not really. I mean, so you've got, what the hell was the name of that place in Louisiana? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. We're just over 2 hours, man. My brain's starting to leak. Stick with, I wouldn't go any more than about 3,500 RPM. Kill the torque converter clutch in first gear and in second gear, and you should be good with that setup. But I just really wouldn't go really much more about 3,500 RPM. They get a little bit soft, much higher than that, especially if you're turning the torque converter clutch off in the Nag 1 cars. Leaving it on can make them a little bit jerky. It just, for whatever reason, at least the ones that I was messing with, it would just get kind of jerky if I left the TCC on in first gear. You'd leave it off anyway, but second gear for sure. So, you know, that would be my suggestions. But it's, again, when it comes to converters, that's a real subjective thing. Let's see. Oh, Dr. Diff talking about that swap truck. Project Slow Truck is cool, but to make big power is going to take a while. Yeah, for sure on that. CJ's hanging out with HU. The HU's, so he's asking, what's wrong with the retro look with some modern performance? The problem is that people need a car for today. The youth market needs cars that reflect them, not their dads and their granddads. That's why I like the Supra so much. I like the upcoming 400Z or 450, whatever they're going to call it, a lot too. But what I don't want to do is have these manufacturers keep resting on this retro look if it's not hitting home. But right now it is hitting home with a lot of folks. So, you know, in saying that, maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe the Camaro tried, again, like I say, it tried too hard. I was saying that earlier. Maybe this is one of the ways that it really did try too hard. It tried to give like a major youth twist with a couple of throwback items here and there, and that never really found a home. So, I don't know. Let's see. CJ's talking about that. Let's see. Hemi Tech, what's the what? Kobe's saying, what's the court today? Hemi tax. I can't read the other portion of it that's in there. Let's see. Mike's asking, what would be a good website to find replacement parts on? For some reason, Dodge doesn't sell the normal air filter cover by itself, only as a whole assembly with the lower half. Oh, man, shit. eBay and any of the forums, some of those guys may have some of that too. Xat saying, I'm torn between an older GT500 and a manual Hellcat. How do they compare? It would be a daily driver, and I would have my trusty Camry as a second car in case something goes wrong. Between the two, I would suggest the Hellcat, mainly because GT500s are kind of getting few and far between, although lately I've seen some of them come up. So here's what I'll say, man. The GT500 has a more aggressive first gear. It's got a 295 first gear versus a 224, 226, whatever. You know, it's going to have like an older style looking interior. But all things considered, they are both extremely robust. Obviously, the GT500 is going to be down, depending on the year, is going to be down on power, but it's not compared to the Hellcat, but it's not down on power in general. The cars are both very fast. The GT500 may be a little bit easier to live with in town with that shorter first gear being 295 versus 295 or 297 versus that 228. So if you're stuck in traffic a lot, I'd go with a GT500. GT500 is just a lot of fun to play with in general too. So, but they're both a riot to drive, and you can't really go wrong with either one of them. And then X is asking, how's parts availability for Hellcat engines compared to older GT500 engines? Pretty good. You know, there's a lot of stuff you can do to both of them. If you're talking like pulleys and tunes being a lot of stuff, that's about where most guys will limit their exposure to modification of any kind with both of those cars. So just know that coming into it, and you'll be in good shape. There's a lot of data on the GT500, and they're a lot of fun. So yeah, you can definitely get whatever you need for both cars. The GT500 being maybe a little bit better supported in general through the aftermarket, but the Hellcat, again, pulleys are really all you need. And really, I'll be honest with you, if you've got a manual Hellcat, if you're not going to put a 3.92 rear gear in it, which isn't really that far away from where you already are with a 370, I would suggest, this is just personal opinion, go with a 3.1 or a 295 pulley as like a mandatory upgrade to that car, just to where it makes the thing a bit more lively to drive around. CJ is saying they need Dodge needs to bring back the 426. That's debatable. You're able to get plenty of power out of the 392. They just need to make it lighter. And then he wants to see the TA come back. Would be pretty cool. Trudy's saying, thanks for the great advice as always. Thank you, man. Anthony's hanging out with that. Let's see, HU37's hanging out with CJ. Let's see, Dresden's asking, have you ever had to do a cylinder head weld repair? I have to pad an intake runner where there's a hole that the lifter in the lifter bore, or a hole at the lifter bore going to TIG it. It was like that when I found it, I swear. Not personally. That's when I hand everything over to people that are a lot better at that than I am. But yeah, those things do happen. And it can happen for a number of reasons. A lot of times it happens when guys are porting heads, casting's a little bit thin, and they kind of pop into a water jacket. So, Machine's asking, do you think non-wide body Charger red eyes will be a thing for aerodynamic purposes? Man, not unless you are just trying to run a number in a mile event with a Mopar. I don't really see that being an issue. They'll all go. The honest to goodness limit that most people will really see with one of these cars is about 170 miles an hour. Most guys just are not going to and don't have the roads to manage speeds much higher than that. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. HU37's asking, I couldn't see the thing, asking what was the mosquito count. Skeeter count, yeah, body count for skeeters. Sorry about that. I just couldn't see the emoji, didn't pop up. There wasn't one tonight because skeeter count's been low. Lately it's been running at 3. I think our record, what was our record? We had like a 9 skeeter night or something like that. So had one night, body count was pretty high, and there was another one where it was pretty close to that, like 7. So, but right now we're staying skeeter free. Hopefully we can keep it that way. Xat saying, thank you very much, man. Appreciate you hanging out. Oh, Cody said I hit the send button too fast for reading my post. All good, man. Anthony saying he is right. The Mustang is a good car. They need a 373 gear. If you want to mod a GT500, go with an 11 or newer. Yeah, man, I've got a soft spot in my heart for GT500s, man. Y'all know that. And going back to the early models, for whatever reason, I just love the way the early ones look. Pulling in a tune, get the thing up to like 550 to the wheel or whatever. They're just so much fun to drive. You don't have to make a boatload of power with those things. And for me, I've got more of a historical appreciation for that car because the GT500 existed from 2007, 2008, let's see, 7, 8, well, really all of them. But 2007, there wasn't anything from GM or Dodge, for that matter, other than the Viper that would have that car ever would have competed against. It had its own sphere of influence. It was itself. So for me, that was a really cool thing. And when you look at just the historical significance of that car and what it meant, big block horsepower with big block torque is now back in your hands, enthusiast. I mean, that's what Ford gave you. And I got to tell you, that means a ton. And if it weren't for that car, we wouldn't have the Hellcat. If it weren't for that car, the Demon would never exist. The ZL1 wouldn't exist. ZR1 may not ever even have existed. So, and I get it. You can take that back to the Terminator, and then before that would have been the Lightning. I understand all of that. But the GT500 was the car that brought us these big horsepower numbers and big torque numbers. So, anyway, love those cars. Let's see. Oh, Anthony's saying the iron blocks are good. It will save you some tuning expenses. And X is asking, what changes have they made to the Hellcat engine since its debut in 2015? They haven't. The only thing, I think that the Teflon coating on the rotors might be a little bit better on the supercharger. And the reason why I say that is I notice a higher KPA or a slightly higher boost pressure out of Chris's car than my car. And it shows in the power that car makes, because his car is heavier than mine, but it traps, the mile an hour is very similar to mine. And when we had the cars on the dyno, mine made 666. I think his made 680 or something like that. So it was just a little bit more, but just enough to annoy me because it had my tune on it. So anyway, but aside from that, nothing. There's no heads are different. Heads aren't any different. Cams aren't any different. Blocks not any different. None of it's different. CJ's hanging out with HU. Let's see. Dress is saying, speaking of skeeters, they are crazy attracted to the high frequency TIG doing aluminum. Felt like Darth Sidious when they would get too close with the torch strike the arc, for sure. I love it. Kobe's saying, I know someone that hit 187 in their new Hellcat on a road in Mexico. I like it. Keep it in Mexico. XAD saying, what is your streaming schedule? I am typically on Tuesdays and on Saturdays at 9:30 Central Standard Time. And I typically go for about 2 hours, and we are up on that. So we're right at 2 hours and 17 minutes. I got to jump out of here because I got to get started on stuff early in the morning. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me tonight. Every one of y'all, I do appreciate very much. Love y'all to death. And God bless. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep it shiny side up. Keep wearing your mask, not for yourself, then for others. And we will catch y'all on the next one. And that is a wrap. Adios.